All right, let's begin. Hi. My name is Obiageli Okafor, and I will be here today to be speaking about projects, portfolios, and proof of skill. Super happy to be here to have this session. Thank you, Ohana, and all the people that made this possible as Shift Plus. Yes, let's get into it. So, quick introduction. I feel like you already know about me from my bio. I transitioned into product without a technical degree. I studied English language and literature in school, and I did my master's in business management. I moved to Nigeria from UK 3 years ago, and now I'm a senior product leader in the UK, and I'm the founder of PMHelp as well. So this is just to say anything is possible. You don't have a technical degree does not mean you can't, do what you need to do. You can, and that's what I'm here to show you how you can do that. So what is the reality? The reality is you don't need a technical degree to be in tech. You just need proof that you can think that way. For every employer, what they are looking at is how you think, right? I'm sorry, I'm looking this way. I have two screens in front of me. So I'm looking this way because this is where the screen is. So apologies, everyone. So yes, as I was saying, if you cannot show how you think, what you've built, and what changed when you built that stuff, that is a problem. So it's not about your degree, it's not about, where you went to school or what you studied. It's all about proof of concept, proof that you can actually do the job. So I've worked in the industry now, telco industry, for maybe 6 years. And one thing I can say for certain is no one has ever asked me for my certificate. And that's crazy because that's the first, like, we went to school so that your employers can ask you, like, can I see your certificate to actually be sure that you went to that school? No one has ever asked me. They just ask for my CV, they ask for references, things like that. But no one ever asked you, what have you studied? Or even try to tie what you're studying into what you're doing. I'm seeing, yes, very true. Thank God I'm not the only one that is happening to. So yes, I want you to just remove that anxiety of, oh, I don't have a technical degree. That's not how this works. What works is, what can you do? How do you think? What have you built? And what changed when you built that stuff? Okay, so what exactly are employers looking for in a candidate? There are four signals, right? One is structured thinking. Now, structured thinking is first principles thinking. I don't know if anyone here has heard of first principles thinking, and that means stripping away all the fluff and going back to the basics. I'm going to show what that looks like later on the slides. But for now, just keep this in mind. First principles thinking. You can write it down, research more about it, but it's just about thinking from the first basis of something. So structured thinking, comfort with ambiguity. How are you comfortable in not knowing, what the whole picture of something? So you're working on a project or on a product and you don't really understand the full picture. How are you comfortable working in that setting? Stakeholder communications. How are you with collaboration? Because being a product manager or a project manager or anything at all in tech is collaborating with other people and making sure that you're communicating with them in the right way. So stakeholder communication, structured thinking, comfort with ambiguity, and the very last one, outcome driven mindset. So for everything you build, for everything that you do, you have to constantly think about, oops, sorry, typo for it. Sorry, that didn't concern me. I got distracted by comments. So yes, back to it. So for everything that you build, everything that you do, when you finally get the job, because you will, you have to think about it from an outcome driven way. So what would this thing I'm building achieve for my company or for my project? Or just would it increase revenue? Would it increase number of users? You have to always just think from that outcome driven mindset. So remember, four structured things, four signals that matter to your employer, what they're looking out for when you're doing your interview, when they're looking at your CV. How does this person think? How comfortable are they with the unknown? And what is your stakeholder communication like? Like, how do you relate with stakeholder management and communicating with people? And what sort of mindset do you have when it comes to outcomes? Four signals. Keep that in mind. And the next thing that I want to debunk is the myth that coding is, I'm not a coder. I don't know how I'm going to cope. I don't know how I'm going to cope in tech. Coding is not enough. Honestly, without us, product managers, project managers, engineers are lost. They're just going to be building stuff just for building's sake. They need product managers to guide them. Coding does not equal to product thinking. Coding is just execution. They're just doing stuff that they were told to do, right? But product thinking coupled with coding makes everything great. So you are super needed in the industry. So employers need proof that you understand the problem, proof that you can make decisions, with or without leaders backing you, proof that you can make trade-off. Trade-off simply means you can say, this doesn't matter, we will prioritize this. So prioritization, and proof that what you're building impacts the business in a positive light. So let's just ease your stress and say, I can't code. Don't worry, I can't code too. We're making it work. So please, coding alone is not enough. Product thinking is supersedes coding, actually, because it is thinking that you can actually, build something in a certain sort of structure that now informs how the engineer is going to do that. If you're not there, the work will not progress. They will just build in vain, literally, and maybe build the wrong thing. So just have that at the back of your mind. Now, let's get into it. You're trying to build your portfolio. You're trying to show proof of skill. How do you build your portfolio? You're going to use something called the build framework. Now, the B is for breaking down the problem. The U is for understanding the users. The I is for ideating the solution. The L is limits with trade-offs, which is prioritization. And the D is for defining your outcomes. This is how you step by step show proof of work. Building your portfolio, you have your CV, great, but you have to have a portfolio. When you're feeling like a job, when you're trying to apply for a job application, and you see a box for putting your portfolio, your website or something, this is what they want to go and see, how you think. What should be there is your case study, and your case study should have the build framework. You can build case studies from anything that you use, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Monzo, Revolut, your bank app, whatever it is that you use, you can build your case study from it. It all has to do with how you're breaking down the problem. If you understand the users, what solutions you're offering those users, how are you prioritizing the solutions that you've listed, and how will they impact the business in terms of outcomes. This is a very important framework. So please keep this in mind, because we're going to apply this framework to a particular case study that we would use to make an example of all of the things we just spoke about. Now, I've gone further to just break down the build so that people understand, what we're talking about. So remember, the build is for breaking down the problem, and the U is for understanding the user. So problem and user. What sort of questions would you ask to unbundle this? One of the questions is, what is actually the problem that you're trying to solve? Something called problem definition is so important. The moment that you start thinking about defining your problem, it helps you so much more to find the solutions that you need, right? Who are the people that these problems, are affecting? Your users. You start to think, are they students? Are they professional workers? Sometimes it's just people like you. So just talk about your demography, people that are maybe 20 to 29. That's a long gap, but you understand what I mean. And why does it matter? Why does solving this problem matter? You start thinking, you can make a few assumptions here. So the assumption could be, maybe if we solve this problem, we're going to, reduce churn. So the amount of people leaving the app might decrease. We can increase revenue, things like that. So always keep that to top of mind. I didn't talk about the output. So the output here, when you're done answering all these questions and asking and answering the questions, you're going to come out with a problem statement, a clear vision of who your users are and what the user insights will be, and assumptions. Feel free to make assumptions. Assumptions are very necessary for you to, take the next step, because remember, a core part of project and product management is ambiguity. You never have all the answers. So assumptions is how you fill in the gaps that you have in those unclear, ambiguous moments. Now, for the I plus the L, is ideating your solutions and limiting with trade-offs. So solution and trade-offs, what questions are you asking? What are the possible solutions for this? Don't worry, we're going to apply this in a pure example so you see how it works. Now, what are possible solutions for this? Why, what did you choose as a particular solution? Because remember, you're going to list a lot of solutions, but you have to pick one. That is the trade-offs. Like, I'm trading off this and this to pick this particular one. So why did I choose this? What am I choosing and why did I choose it? What did you not build? Remember the trade-offs bit that we talked about. So what have you prioritized as number one? Now, what you're going to get out of this is you're going to have a user flow, like what the solution should look like, prioritize features. This is what I must do. This is what I should do next. This is what I could do next, and this is what I won't do. This is clear Moscow framework. That's what it's called, right? Moscow, the country framework. Just put it online. You see the full definition of it. And of course, from the prioritized features, you will see what you've traded off. What you're like, okay, we're not doing this because this would lead to this, and we don't want that. The next slide is about outcomes, right? Defining what your outcomes would be. What does success look like when this ships? What metrics am I trying to improve? Remember that one of the core things that your employer is looking at is this person actually outcome driven? Does this person have the outcome driven mindset? So it's so important. It's not you can't just only build stuff and not think about what it impacts, what metrics it will impact, things like that. This is how you show that you have actually won, right? So what does success look like? Maybe you can say, oh, we're trying to reduce churn by 10%, which is great. Or you can say we're trying to increase our revenue by 5%, 10%. You need to show how this impacts the business on a positive light, as always. And how would you test this out? So do you want to do A/B testing, to figure out, what works and what doesn't work by like creating two different prototypes, trying it out on trying a part of it with a particular demography of people and seeing how it affects them without disrupting the regular business flow. So what are the outputs? You're going to get your KPIs, retention, conversion, churn, NPS, customer satisfaction, all of those things, those good KPIs. This is where the output comes from. You also get to experiment your idea. That's what A/B testing is about. Testing out if your idea works without putting it to the whole group of users. You can just get a subset of people and test it out. And of course, the expected impact. Now, let's do an example. This is my favorite part. So for the example we've used is Netflix. How many people use Netflix here? Can I just see the chat flare up? Let everyone, if you use Netflix, say hi, 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 hello, hello, hello. Yes, we all use Netflix. I love Netflix. And that's why I've decided to use it, because it's something we can relate to. Now, why do users share Netflix accounts instead of subscribing? This is a core problem. You can see, I don't know, recently people, if you try to use someone else's Netflix account, sometimes they kick you off. I guess that's their way of trying to solve the problem. And we're going to apply the build framework to this issue so we can see how this strips out. Now, the problem obviously is account sharing instead of paid subscriptions, right? People want to, use other people's stuff instead of just paying for theirs. I do it, so I can't even lie. I use my sister's account. Now, let's break down the problem. Users access Netflix through shared accounts instead of paying. That's the problem that we're trying to solve for, right? And breaking it down is going back to the nitty-gritty of why do they even do that? Why do people share their accounts instead of, having those other guys that are using their subscription pay for theirs? One, high subscription costs. So imagine students, for example, students can afford that. Like, they have other basic needs. So if one person subscribes, everybody just latches onto that other person. And then there's also the subscription cost is high, and what is the value? Sometimes I can go months without watching Netflix and I'll just watch like something else like Disney Plus, right? So you need to think, the high subscription cost, does it give us the perceived value? This is you breaking down the problem. The second one is irregular usage. some months you don't watch Netflix, some months you do. Why am I paying other money for something I don't even use, right? Then there's easy access. I just have to just call up my sister and tell her, give me your Netflix details. Or other people, my partner as well can just give me his Netflix details, right? So it's so easy to get it from other people. Why do I have to pay for this? And then there's also weak enforcement historically. So historically, Netflix has always allowed people to share with their households. That's why you have like multiple, profiles. So they've historically let people do that. So that's why it's already like, for us, it's not even cheating. For us, this is normal. Like, you have a profile for it anyway. So why not? Right? So from all of this, we have been able to break down this to like, why is this happening? And once we have all of that, we then have our problem statements. Users avoid subscribing because shared access provides similar value at zero cost. That's it, right? That's how you break down problems. Have the general problem, it looks so big, right? But by the time you break it down to little bits and pieces, you get the problem statement, which also tells you why that's happening. So users avoid subscribing. Why? Because access provides similar value at zero cost. That's your problem statement. Let's go. The next one is understanding the user. Now, who are the users? Remember, I talked about students. Students don't have money. That they earn what, £12 per hour. Why would I spend my money, paying for Netflix when I can get it from free from my parents, from whoever? And then there's young professionals as well. Young professionals we are all just so engrossed in our work, where we have like lots and lots of subscriptions already. So sometimes you're like, you know what, I'm not even going to pay for this, right? And then there's like casual viewers who just come and go. They're never seriously there. They're just like, they have other things that they enjoy, maybe tennis and all of that. So they're not even spending so much time on their screens. This is how you understand your users. Just think, who are the people that this affects? You can even go on Reddit. This requires research, right? You can go on Reddit and just like ask that question and see, the sort of people that engage with that, or even the sort of people that have written stuff about that. You can get a demographic from that. And now the user insights. Erica, okay. Now for the user insight, I don't use it enough to justify paying. That's the sort of insights you'll be getting. You can create a survey as well, like with your Google Forms, and give it to people around you to answer. And once they fill that up, you can get phrases that you can use to justify why you're even solving this problem. So phrases like, I don't use it enough to pay for this, is a user insight. I can just use my friend's account. Is a user insight. It makes you realize that, oh my God, I can actually just, use someone else's account. I don't have to pay for this. So user insights are super important. Remember how I talked about assumptions earlier, how you don't have the full picture. Sometimes you have to make assumptions. So the assumption that I have made for this particular issue is price sensitivity is high. People are just like very cagey about, I don't want to be paying for this stuff. Like, I want to, watch my movie and keep it going with someone's free account. I don't have to pay for anything. Convenience drives behavior. Like, people just feel like it's just more convenient not to pay for this stuff, right? And users will not pay unless they feel like value feels continuous. Let's not lie. Sometimes you come on Netflix and you don't even watch anything. You spend like 30 minutes browsing through all that content. It's almost like you're having your over consumption of content because you don't even know where to search. So in your head, you're like, exactly, Jonathan, more browsing than watching. So in your head, you're like, why am I paying for this if I can just like get someone to give it to me for free and not feel annoyed that I've paid just to browse and not watch anything, right? So these are assumptions that I've made to buttress the problem. Now, how do we ideate certain solutions? From all the issues you've gathered, you can start to ideate like, oh, why don't they have like lower price tiers? Like, it's fine if they can add ads, right? Like Prime has a lower tier where there's ads involved. And then there's also like limiting account sharing across households. I feel like they're already doing that. They're implementing that now, because sometimes you get thrown off because they're like, oh, you're not in the same proximity as the person you're using the account. Yeah, they are doing that now. And then there's also pay per profile. So for every profile, I think this is a good idea. For every profile that they add, like you add someone onto your household, you get to pay for that profile. That's a good way to get people to be accountable, right? And then there's also flexible subscription, pause or pay as you watch. So if I'm on it, I pay. If I'm not on it, I'm not paying for anything. It makes more sense. And then there's also exclusive features for primary account holders. So if I'm a primary account holder, maybe I don't get ads, but then all the profiles that are added to my particular account get ads. So it just depends on, these are all solutions to the problem, right? But you have to pick one that supersedes all the others. Oh, thank you, Jonathan. Maybe Netflix should hire me indeed. Let's keep going. Now, this is the trade-offs part. What are we choosing as our solution and what are we trading off? So our solution is restrict account sharing and also introduce a lower cost ad supported plan. While I chose this is because you have to also think about how this can be implemented, right? Would it increase engineering effort? If it does increase engineering effort, there's no need to even go on that route because you're trying to always use that effort versus impact. So the lowest effort for the highest impact. They already have account sharing. So just restricting it will not take a lot of effort, but we can see results. That's why I chose this solution. You should always in your portfolio, when you pick a solution, explain why you chose that solution, why you've traded off the rest. So the trade-offs now, user backlash. Users may feel like the platform is more restrictive. Like these are things that I feel will come up. And even as I've chosen this solution, I should be prepared for these issues. So users can say, oh my God, these guys are now restricting the account. I'm no longer going to use Netflix. It could happen. I could lose users, right? Some shared users may leave because of, it's not converting for them anymore. And this is a good thing because at least I would be losing people that, sorry about that. I'll be losing people that, they don't even pay anyway. So why are they still on this app, right? Ads could reduce experience quality. I've been paying for YouTube because I can't deal with the ads. It's driving me, crazy. And then there's also engineering plus enforcement complexity. Remember what I talked about, engineering effort. You always need to think about them. Engineering needs to detect when someone is not within a household, right? They would be able to do that. I believe that they already have the usage and, all that data to make that informed decision. Now, why this works is because it balances restriction with affordability. That's why this solution works. This is what I would tell my boss, right? I'll tell my boss, because we're going to restrict account sharing, we're going to reduce the amount of people poaching on other people's accounts, right? And it will balance my restriction with the affordability, right? Time is almost going. We're almost done. And finally, how would I define success for this? I would look at increased number of paid users, right? Because some people will get frustrated with being thrown off. They'll just have to pay for their own account. Especially now we have a cheaper tier. Then there's conversion rate from shared users. So I'm hoping that the shared users would, by the time we throw them off a few times, they will have to convert to paid users. And then there's revenue per user. These are a few things that the success metrics I would, measure. And then how do I test this? I will roll this out to a selected region. I can pick places where we see high rates of sharing. Example, Nigeria, where I'm from, we're constantly sharing with each other. I would roll that out there first and just leave other regions, test it out, see how it goes, compare the conversion and churn. If it works out, fine. We roll it out to other areas. If it doesn't, we roll back, right? And then finally, what do I expect? I expect reduced free usage, like no more sharing, and I expect increase from revenue. So what tools can you use to do this? You can use Notion to write your case, like to drop all your nuggets, all the things that you're thinking. You can use Figma to, design simple flows. And then, of course, you can also use Miro to map out your ideas. And of course, ChatGPT is your best friend for structured thinking. Sometimes when I feel like I have a lot going on, I use ChatGPT voice to text. And once I use the voice to text, I dump all my ideas and tell ChatGPT to structure my thinking. So you have that advantage, right? And by all means, you can do vibe coding. You can vibe code anything. I vibe coded my website. I've vibe coded so many good stuff. And in fact, I'm releasing something called Prompt to Product, where I teach people how to use vibe coding to, create products that they want to show off on their portfolio. So you guys will watch out for that space. You can use simple working prototypes, no heavy coding. You don't even have to stress, just simple, explaining it with plain English, and it will translate to an actual working app. And you can generate a shareable link that you can put on your portfolio so that the recruiter can go in and see what that looks like. It helps you to show things and not just tell people that you can do stuff. It helps them see that you can actually do stuff. Now, I'm just going to talk about PMHelp for a bit. I hope you allow me, Elhana. So PMHelp is a platform that helps you with, things like CV reviews, portfolio building, mentorship, real world practice, and it all comes for free. You can just check out our website. There is no stress for you to do this alone. We believe that you can actually work on this journey with other people, and you don't have to go through your ideations by yourself. Someone else you can bounce things off other people, and that's what PMHelp is here for. We've helped thousands of people structure their thinking, help them with understanding you cannot skip problem definition is so important, and building a good portfolio for you. So I challenge you this week, something you can do: pick a product that you use daily, identify one problem, not two. If you can do two, fine, but identify one problem, apply the build framework, write it in 1 or 2 pages, and build a simple prototype. This is optional, and share a link and tag me on LinkedIn, and I would love to explore that with you. Action beats theory anytime. Every single day, pick action over theory, because theory is just all talk. But if you actually act on it, you would do an amazing, thing that people will be wowed over. Thank you for listening. Any questions, please drop it on the chat. And yeah, you can reach me on LinkedIn from there. Thank you, Elhana, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Obi. Again, I agree with the person in the chat that said you should work for Netflix. From that example alone, I think it would improve all our user experiences. We're out of time, but we just wanted to ask a quick question. What is the biggest mistake you see when people make even when they're presenting their projects or portfolios?
I think one of the biggest mistakes I see is the lack of assumptions. So people feel like they should know it all. You don't.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to know every single answer. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on people to just, be like, oh, I know it all. I know how this is going to go down. It's okay for you to say, I'm not clear on this part. I assumed this is. In fact, they love when you do that, because it means that you're thinking out of the box. So constantly, assumptions is something people skip over. It's so important that you assume things, because in the grand scheme, in reality, you never have all the answers. Think about it in your workplace. You always have to assume a few things before you see the clearer picture. That's one of it. And then the second one is people always just skip over problem definition. They never define the problem properly. They just, put a one line and keep it going. So please, that's how you should start every portfolio building or interview, with the defined problem, because that informs every other thing that you do. Even when you feel confused during an interview, go back to the problem that you've defined. It helps you keep track. It's like a roadmap. It helps you keep track of whatever solutions that you prefer. You can see from the build framework when we discussed it, like the problem informed every other thing that we had to do. So please feel free to make assumptions. It's okay not to know it all. It's okay.
Amazing answer. Thank you so much, Obi. And please, I would encourage you to reach out to Obi and join the community at PMHelp. I know they have absolutely great resources. I can vouch for that. So again, this will be shared with you after the session. Thank you once again, Obi.